Hey everyone, you're here with Dr. Python JavaScript, and what we're going to do is tackle a pretty common algorithm problem that you'll see on software engineering interviews. So let's say that we have a variable, and we'll call it string, right? And within this string, we're going to have a set of parentheses, right? Let's say curly brackets, let's say square brackets. As of right now, you can see that these are even, but as far as each of the matching tags, they don't really have to be in the right order, right? Let's say we did this. Let's say we put that like that. It doesn't matter. As long as these strings are matching, then it'll satisfy the condition. And what is the condition? So I want to return a function, return a Boolean, which means true or false, right? Based on a set of conditionals. And if every tag, right, has an equal number of matching tags, then we'll return true, right? Else, if even one tag is missing, is missing an opposite tag, then return true, or false rather. Awesome. So how do we build a function like this? Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to start declaring some variables so that I don't have to worry about that later on. So I'll say const len, and that's going to represent the length, and I'll say string dot length. It's a good practice to keep your length variables outside of any loops so that it doesn't have to keep calculating the length whenever it does iterate over the loop. Awesome. So let's create the function. I'll say let's say const is match, right? And it's going to be a anonymous function, right? And what should we put in as the argument? Well, the argument is just going to be any string that we want to put in there, right? So we'll say string. Cool. Now, a string is technically some type of array, right? But we want to be able to guarantee that this is an array. So what we'll do is we'll say const r, and we'll set that equal to a set of square brackets, and then we'll use our spread operator, and then we'll put string in there. Awesome. So at this point, we now can guarantee that we have an array here if this is a string. At this point, what do we want to do? Also, put in string here when I should put str because that's the argument's name. Awesome. Now, what should we do here? Well, the first thing I want to do is, if this string is an odd number of elements, then we should just automatically return false, right? Because if it's odd, that means something's missing a tag. So and the way I will do that is I'll say if r, we did already calculate the length, so that makes things a lot easier. So I can say if len, and I'll say it's equal to. So here, interestingly enough, I'm going to do this within the scope of the function. That way, we're not just going to keep one length, right? Because we may have a different string that comes in. So with this being the case, I'm going to let that be the argument. Excellent. And we can even get more brownie points for this. Great. So at this point, what I want to do is I'll say if len, and this I'll put in a modulus. All right. So if len divided by 2, if that has a value, which means that's an odd number, then we're just going to return false, right? Otherwise, if that's not the case, then we'll continue with the rest of the conditional. So the rest of the conditional is going to be pretty simple. How do we want to think through this? Well, if I'm going through this and I'm trying to iterate through, I know that I have to have some type of for loop, right? But what am I going to do within that for loop? Well, what I'm going to do within that for loop is go ahead and give every single element in this string or array a value within a map. And then I'm going to compare the values based on key entries. If those values aren't equal, then I'm going to return false. And I'm going to show what that looks like. So we'll say iterate over array and create a map of key value pairs. So we're building a relationship here, and you'll see this with a lot of data modeling questions. So great, we're going to iterate over the array and we're going to create a map of key value pairs. Now I could use the reduce method for this, because that, you know, if I put in then within the second parameter empty object, then we can just return that. I want to make this look really simple to you guys. So the first thing I'll do is I'll say const map, and I'll make that an empty object. Then that way, when I'm ready to iterate over this, I can say simple for loop for, and as you know, we'll use I. Say let I equal 0. That'll initialize I at 0. Then I'll say I, and at this point we do have the length property, which makes things a lot easier. So we'll say whenever I is less than length, right? And then here simply I plus plus. Don't you love coding? So intuitive, so amazing. I love it. Anyways, at this point, what do we want to do inside of this loop? Well, what I want to do is go ahead and start accessing that map. So I'll need an if statement, and I'll say, actually today I'm going to teach you guys tertiary conditionals, because it just makes if statements a lot more sexier. And yes, that's right, I said sexier. So things more smoother, and I think, you know, you guys should start getting used to that. So if we have a conditional we want to put in here, I can say map, and now we're going to put in the key. So that key is going to be represented by R, and then whatever index we're on for that, right? So if this has a value of undefined, right, then we want to go ahead and give it a value of 1. So how do we do that? Well, I can at this point put a question mark, which I love, and then here now I have to have 2 set of conditionals. So if it's true, then I'll go ahead and let's make this simpler. I'll copy this here, paste it right in there, all right? But if it is false, oh, by the way, and set that equal to 1. Let's go ahead and do that. But if it is false, then what should I do? Well, if it's false, what I'll do is just increment it, all right? So we'll say map. Oh, actually, let's copy paste again, and let's go ahead and increment that baby, all right? So this is what a tertiary conditional looks like. We could have put that in an if loop, but sometimes if you want to keep your code nice and sexy, nice and slim, then this is what you'll do. All right, so at this point, let's say it iterates over this and goes ahead and returns the values in our map that we need. At this point, we want to go ahead and create another conditional so that we can go ahead and check inside that map. I'll even have a quick check over here, and I'll say console.log map so that we can see what the map looks like at this point. Next, we'll have our next tertiary conditional, and this one is by far one of my favorite. I'm just gonna let you guys know ahead of time that we're gonna have, I want to say 3 different and statements, right? So this one, and then another and. So we're gonna have 3 conditionals in this tertiary operator. Isn't that cool? So I'll say map, bang. Now, which key do I want to access the map? Well, this time I could just hard code it in, and I'll say this. Sorry, let's start with that one, right? And we want to make sure that the value of that key is equal to the value in the opposite. Oh, give me 1 second. All right, there we go. All right, and let's go and put our quotes for that. Great. All right, so just to save time, I'm gonna go ahead and copy this syntax here, and I'll just fill in the values in the middle. We actually only needed 3 or 2 and statements. Great. So basically, all of these have to be true. And what if one of these were missing, entire tag? Well, then the value for that would be either, null. And if the value were null, then it should still be equal, right? So great. At this point, we've got this here, we've got that there, bang, bang. What do I want to do? I want to change these. So change that to that. Let's change this to that. And that's right, curly brackets. Awesome. So this is a conditional. We put a question mark. And now we have our 2 outcomes. So if all of this is true, then we can return, or I'm not going to write return because it knows to return. We'll just say true. But if all of this, or even one of these is false, then we'll return false. It's that simple. So at this point, what do I want to do? Well, I want to go ahead and return what my final outcome is, right? At this point, imagine this were an if statement. The only way that we can sort of get a value at the end of this, because we didn't hardcore return something, is if I were to go ahead and console.log this function. So I'll say console.log. Here I'm going to say is match. Now we do have to give it a parameter, and the parameter we're going to use in this situation is string. So without further ado, let's go ahead and make sure we didn't do all of this for no reason. And so far we did. So let's see what the error here is. Console.log. Let's see here. It's not a function. What is the issue here? Okay, so this map, right? What is going on with the map? Alright, so if we're in this for loop, you all pretty much want some type of block in there. Let's see if that helps. This is still scoped out to happen after. So let's see here. Now, JavaScript usually runs the code immediately, but I think what would probably be smarter is if I would have just returned this at the end instead of just running it. Right? So let me go ahead and first see if that helps. So we have this here. Great, that makes sense. This here. Great, that makes sense. That makes sense. And this absolutely makes sense. True, false. Amazing. Yeah, I love these two conditions. So let's see what was the problem there. Excellent. So it did go ahead and our console.log worked. But as I suspected, if I don't put in this return, it's going to return undefined. So let's go ahead and run this now. And now we got true, right? Because I did have an equal number of tags. But if I were to mess this up by even adding, something like that, let me actually undo that just to make sure that I didn't add equal matching curly brackets. Let's just see here. All right, excellent. All right, so yeah, if I just add something like that, then this should return false. Excellent. So that's how you know that your code works. And at this point, you will get a lot of algorithms like this, similar to a palindrome. I hope you guys enjoy that. It's Dr. Python JavaScript, and I do videos like this all the time. So make sure you subscribe. Talk to you soon.